Hello, this is Dr. Bossing, and this is another video for English 111. And this one is all about paper number 3, which is basically what we're spending the last month of the semester on, this kind of problem solution research paper. And I just want to go over some aspects of the assignment so we're all really clear on what the assignment is asking you and looking forward to the due dates and smaller assignments over the next few weeks. So this problem solution paper, here's the assignment, and here's what I want you guys to focus on as you're planning your paper this week and looking for appropriate sources that you can use in the research paper. Your assignment is to write a problem solution paper that focuses on one of the educational issues listed below in the topics list. And your paper should accomplish the following tasks. And if you think about it, there's 4 little jobs for your paper to do. And if you think about it, you could organize your paper. When you start putting your outline for your paper together, you could just follow these 4 tasks, and those would be the 4 sections or the 4 body paragraphs even of your paper. If you have 4, you might end up having 6 or 5 or whatever. Sometimes your discussion and the information you want to include in the paper kind of sets its own structure, right? So you can't just say this is a 3 body paragraphs or 4 body paragraphs, but I think you'll have probably at least 4. And the things I want you to be cognizant of as you're putting this paper together is, number 1 job, especially identify an educational problem in a local area. And I put Wake County because most of us live here and have lived here for a while. That needs to be addressed, right? A problem that hasn't been corrected yet. And the 2 things to focus on are education and local. Right? So if you're just dying to write a paper about legalizing marijuana or gun regulation or something like that, some political issue that you're interested in or that you've written about before, this is not that paper, right? Save that for some other class, some other paper assignment where it fits. One thing to just get used to is you want your paper to fulfill what the assignment is asking, right? So this is a problem solution paper about a local issue dealing with education, right? So don't try to write about legalized marijuana and say that the nation should legalize marijuana and somehow that's a local educational issue, because it just isn't going to be a good fit. And again, if you are not from Wake County or haven't lived here long enough to kind of really know any kind of educational issues, then feel free to write about some other community that you do know something about. If you moved here recently from New Hanover County, right, or Robeson County or someplace else, and you know that they've got a problem unique to that area, then feel free to write about that. Write about something you know. That's the biggest thing, because that's when the writing gets good and interesting, right? If you know something about it, if you're engaged with the topic, that gets reflected in the quality of your writing. If you're from another country and you've just recently moved here, if you moved here from Ecuador and you know something about the Ecuadorian university system that really needs to be addressed, write about that. That would be cool. I'd love to learn about that. So keep it local, and you can define what local is. I put Wake County because a lot of us have connections with the Wake County public school system or the community college system or local universities. But if you want to say North Carolina is local, if you want to argue that North Carolina should provide free community college education, that's cool. That would be effective. I just don't want these big like national issues, because this is a relatively short paper. I know, easy for me to say. I don't have to write the thing. But it is a relatively short paper, and it's really hard to deal with like nationwide problems that I have a great idea for in a 4-page or 5-page paper. So keep it local, keep it about education. It's all good. The second part is you want to explain why this is a problem at all, that you need to write about. We need to, as a community, engage in and put resources in to fix, right? So it's that kind of classic so what question. You don't want your reader to get to the end of your paper and go, oh, I don't care, so what, right? It should be significant enough. It can't be just like a personal complaint about, I don't know, the quality of food in high school cafeterias back when, we ate in cafeterias at school campuses. The third and fourth part is about the problem and the solution, right? So that's going to be part 3 is to either talk about solutions that have been tried or the status quo, like what we're doing now to address this issue. And clearly it's going to be something that's not effective enough, right? If the solutions that have been tried worked, there wouldn't still be a problem. So you want to kind of give like a bit of a background of what the status quo is, and then propose your solution, right? Whatever you think, I've got this great idea, or I know this was tried in some other place, and I think we could apply that same program here in Wake County or in North Carolina. And then you want to explain why your solution, the kind of positive results you think your solution would have. That's the kind of persuasive part of the paper, and finishing with kind of a call to action, like let's do this. I gave you 9 different topics, and then the possibility of ordering off the menu, right? If you've got a topic that you really want to deal with that I just didn't think of, feel free to shoot me an email this week or talk to me during my office hours on Teams, and we can kind of hash that out and think about a different topic. But these 9 are ones that I know have worked in the past. First off, just anything dealing with like what we're going through right now with the pandemic and distance learning and virtual instruction and all that. There's, we're living it. So you're an expert in that, in what works and what doesn't, and how it could be improved. So think about that. You could definitely, I've already had a couple people reach out about the higher cost of college education and the idea of tuition-free college, or at least community college, having the first 2 years at least paid for. And there's been a lot of attention on that in the last few years. And believe me, as the parent of my 2 kids that are both in college right now, I get that that's a huge problem, and I got lots of ideas how we could fix it, or at least start addressing it. So that's great. And in fact, I put up a video in this week's folder of a TED Talk from a guy who works in, I think it's Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the community college there set up a program, and like super local, this one county in Oklahoma that set up a program to provide tuition-free college. And I put that up just because they came up with kind of a creative solution to this problem for their local citizens. And it's worked really well. And it, you could argue, like, use that as a source, one of your sources, and say, they tried this program and we could easily adapt that to Wake Tech, or North Carolina could do that for the whole community college system. But there's tons of others. I kind of tried to get a mix of high school issues, because you guys are experts in that, a lot of you. So things like job training and internships and things that aren't completely devoted to the college track. Or just not enough diversity or variety in either the courses or the faculty, what to do with high dropout rates, this kind of division between public schools and private schools, or between public schools and charter schools, or homeschooling programs, anything like that, where there's just like some issue between that and the goal of providing equal education to all citizens of North Carolina, I think is worth thinking about. As is standardized testing. That's really changed this year because of pandemic, but it's been changing, right? That idea, there's a lot of discussion, both at the high school level and especially at the college level, of this whole reliance on just these test scores and all the resources devoted to that, when a lot of us think that's not particularly useful anymore. Anyway, stuff about school safety, stuff about just medical care, particularly like mental health care for students, or something else, something off the menu. I provided a couple of examples, and I want to look at one in just a minute, of papers that worked last semester. One is about education during the pandemic and distance learning. And the other one is about like mental care for students and why we need to devote more resources to that. Both of those are in the paper 3 assignment folder, which is in this week's folder, and it's also listed just on the list of folders under lessons and assignments. So anyway, it's really important to nail down the topic for this week. Also to remember your audience, right? That this is going to be the paper that's most formal and most kind of like an academic argument that you're going to pitch. So you want to avoid an informal tone. You want to be really formal and kind of academic with this paper, which means stay away from first person pronouns, I and we. Definitely stay away from second person pronouns, you should do this. And you want to back up your argument, right? Every academic essay is essentially an act of persuasion. You're trying to persuade your readers that they should agree with you in whatever position you're taking. And the way you're going to do that with this paper is to back up your discussion, to support your argument, your academic argument, with sources, right? So you definitely, some of you have been great about using MLA format and like making sure you have in-text citations, right? Like those parentheses at the end of quotations, or paraphrasing, where you're putting parentheses in that in-text citation, and also having a works cited page at the end of your paper. That kind of two-step process of documenting your sources. Some of y'all have been great, and some of y'all have basically considered that to be optional, and it's really not, and it's not going to be an option. I mean, yeah, it's an option. You can leave it off and lose a lot of points that are just kind of like points you don't need to lose on something that's pretty simple once you get used to doing it. And you're going to be expected to do it in every paper you ever write for a college class. So why not start doing it now? If you've got questions about that, right? If you've watched the videos I posted or the links in our weekly folders, and you still just are like, I just don't get it, now would be the time to reach out. Shoot me an email, talk to me during my office hours, just to like nail that concept down, because it's a concept you're going to be revisiting again and again in every class for every paper you write. The length, again, easy for me to say, not so tough when I know it is tough, right? I wrote a lot of papers over many years of being a student. But look, a 4-page paper for something that has several sections already kind of laid out of what you want to do, I think you got this, right? The last paper you wrote was supposed to be a 4-page paper. A lot of you went more than 4. So this is basically the same length. And of course, then the final page, which doesn't count in the page length, is going to be the works cited page. Please don't forget it. And please, at the top of that last page, write works cited and not references or citations or anything else other than those two words, works cited. Again, why lose points for simple errors that are, take 2 seconds to fix, right? Same with this. Use at least 4 sources. They don't have to be out of scholarly articles, although that's fine. There's going to be a ton of stuff in this week's folder and next week's folder about just finding sources and how to integrate those sources into your own writing, into the paper. But this is an exercise basically in that. Taking other people's facts and ideas and weaving them in to your own discussion and your own argument. So have at least 4 sources. Again, don't use 3 and then lose a bunch of points because you don't meet the minimum requirements. Spend an extra 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, finding that 4th source and inserting it into your paper and listing it on your works cited page. So you don't lose the easy points. And again, I want your focus of your discussion to be local. But the sources themselves don't have to be local, right? You don't have to get something from a news story from WRAL TV News or from the News and Observer newspaper here in town. It's great if you do, and some of you might, if you're writing about Wake County Public Schools or Wake Tech Community College, you can certainly go to the websites and find information, and that would be local sources. So it's great if you can find them, but don't feel limited or trapped by the idea of finding local sources. You can certainly find national-wide sources, and then part of your job can be applying that information to a more local argument. Again, make sure it's at least 4 pages because you'll lose points if you don't, and that would be silly. The organization, you'll be thinking a lot about this week because I'm asking you to kind of put together a tentative outline. But this one should break down pretty simply, really, right? It's in the title of the assignment, problem and solution. So, as a goal, you might think, my goal for this is to have 50% of the paper be about the problem and 50% be about the solution. It may end up being kind of 60% about the problem and only 40% about the solution, and that would be okay. What you don't want, the risk with this, especially if you don't have an outline kind of detailed, is it's a lot easier to write about the problem, right? You're going to find tons of sources about the higher cost of college education or the problems with instruction during a pandemic. And so the temptation is to just write a bunch about the problem and then a paragraph about the solution right at the end of the paper. And you don't want to do that. You want to put some of your time and your mental energy towards a solution. The really good papers that I've read, the A papers, are ones that write in quite a bit of detail about the solutions, because that's where it's coming more from you, right? You're not just collecting information about some flaw in the system that should be corrected, and here's why. You want to do that in the first half of the paper, but you also want to give plenty of space for your ideas about how to fix things, right? It's easier to complain about something than to lay out a detailed proposal for a solution. So just kind of like keep that in mind, that you want to kind of balance the problem and the solution out and give yourself plenty of time and space in your paper for the solution. This week is what we're looking at. It's all about finding sources that can kind of like guide you in this discussion, but also laying out a plan, right? A kind of roadmap for yourself in terms of a thesis, nailing down, and it may change as you write, but kind of a tentative thesis and a tentative outline. of how you want this paper to be broken down into parts. Because once you break it down into its smaller sections, it's a much easier paper to write. That's true for any paper you ever write. If you can just break it down, break the big job of writing a 5-page paper down into a much smaller, more manageable job of let me write about why this is a really significant problem that hasn't been addressed to my satisfaction, and write that today. And then tomorrow write about the problems that have been tried and failed. And the next day write about my solutions to the problem. The more you can divide up the job into smaller, more manageable tasks, the much easier this will be. Okay, that's about all I've got about the assignment. Again, maybe that was all very apparent when you read through this, but I think it's important just to kind of highlight some things. The other thing I just wanted to point out, and you can read this on your own, here's one of the examples. This is the first example of a paper that got an A last semester. This is the one about education during the pandemic, and the other one is about the kind of like addressing mental health issues with students, and they both were super successful. And if you want to see what a really strong paper looks like for this assignment, I encourage you to check both of these out. And this is just like what a good paper in proper MLA format looks like, right? You got the page 1 header over here, and it's only on the first page, right, where you want it. Same with the page numbering, with the title, with the paragraphs, and with the works cited page, right? All in alphabetical order, all using hanging indentation, all in MLA format. Anyway, it's super good looking paper, super organized, right? Because you can tell right from the first paragraph, the introductory paragraph, exactly what the subject is, and as it goes, it narrows down into Wake County issues, and then specifically what Wake County needs to do to address the possible kind of digital divide of students that don't have all the resources they need to do this whole distance learning thing. So I would encourage you to check this paper out and the other one out. And if you have any questions at all this week about this paper 3 assignment, this is the week to get really clear on what your plan is for this paper. And I'm always around. I'm checking my email constantly, 4 days out of the week. I'm available to talk online, and if those days don't work, we can set up a time between the two of us that we can meet. Anyway, look, we're in the home stretch, right? We're coming downhill on this semester, and this is the paper I want you to shine on. If you've been kind of like, oh, I've got other classes, I've got to put more energy in, and if English 111 has never been like at the top of your priority list, for some of this month, put paper number 3 at the top of the priority list and devote some time and energy into this paper, because I want this one to be the best work that you're capable of doing. Finish this semester strong, and you'll be happy, and I'll be happy, and the world will be a better place. Okay, work hard, be kind. I'll talk to y'all soon. Take care.